So here's the structure of what I'm going to talk about. Um, the premise is that there is an issue in the UK with not only the quantity of engineers that we've got coming through, but the qualities of those engineers as they come through. And the core of what I'll be talking about is the Five Tribes approach, which is some work that the Institution of Mechanical Engineers did back in 2014 that is broadly about personalizing engineering education, that we're not all the same. And in the same way that any commercial organization would segment its market, anything trying to sell engineering ought to be segmenting its market across the different students that might be listening. And so the key factor then is, so what implications does that have for teaching that might change the quantity and the qualities of the students coming through? And then the conclusion is the next steps. So if you've all bought into the logic of where we've gone, then so what is it that we're going to be doing as the next steps? Actually, not just to be talking about this in 5 years' time as being the same sort of problem. So let's have a look at the premise. And the premise is work that is I'm drawing heavily on the work of the Royal Academy of Engineering here, who put a lot of effort into trying to understand the quantity and qualities of students that are coming through. And this is the core of their work. Trying to pick one of their slides of many slides. This is the one that shows who works in the workforce in the UK. And there are 32 million people working in the UK. And the bit that you need to look at is this piece around here, which relates to engineering and technology 4.4 million, and engineering technology related 2.1 million, which gives 6.5 million people in the UK, according to the Labour Force Survey. And this is the 2022-2023 survey. And that does not include medicine and health related, mathematics and STEM related. So this 6.5 million is what the Royal Academy of Engineering says are the sort of people that we've currently got. So if there was no change in the employment in the UK, then we need to get 6.5 million people being trained. They don't particularly put much effort into, is the workforce changing in terms of any quantitative analysis? They do more qualitative analysis. But in terms of the quantitative analysis, they say, well, if there's 6.5 million people in there, and they typically work 50 life years working in industry, then dividing 6.5 million by 50 years gives you 130,000 people a year who are expected to retire from the industry. But there is work going on. Is that number increasing or decreasing? And this is from the Department for Education, who have a unit for future skills. And it just shows how difficult and unscientific it is. Here, 9.4 million is the number of people they say are in STEM occupations. So that's equivalent to the 12 million that's on the Royal Academy work. But the importance of showing you this, not only is to show you this is an imprecise science, but is to show you that over the last year, there's been an average growth of 1% in the number of people employed. The predicted employment growth is higher than that towards 2030. 4%. And so the 6.5 million is expected by the Department for Education, who are now responsible for skills, to be increasing above 6.5 million. And they also include in here this factor, which we're all very well aware of, which is that only 25% of the workforce in that 6.5 million are women. And so it starts to allude to one of the areas clearly that we should be looking at. We're not addressing the entire population of the UK. The STEM workforce is not reflective of the population of the UK. But let's have a look at what that means. So you could all do the math. Dividing 6.5 million by 50 gives you 130,000 of us retire every year. So if nothing changed, if all the jobs stayed exactly the same, which is not true, but if as a benchmark, these are the sort of numbers we need coming through. So the question obviously is, are there that number of people interested in engineering and technology coming through the education system? Now, this is also Royal Academy of Engineering work. And I'll take you through this because it's quite a complicated diagram. But here on the left-hand side, There are enough of us being born and bred in this country. You've got about 600,000 people each year, slightly more than that, who are of any particular age. So you want 130,000, you've got over 600,000. It's sort of one in five we need to get. So that's fine. We don't need any more breeding or any fixing ways of doing these things. There's enough people in the UK. This is then the largest group that get involved in engineering and technology. This is 41,000 people who are doing level 3 apprenticeships. So they do the GCSEs, they then go on to a level 3 apprenticeship, and 41,000 people are in there out of the 130. So that's a jolly good start. This then is the next largest, which are people who are going on to do undergraduate degrees, having done their A levels. You see a number of people doing A levels here. And there are 37,000 people here. So we're up to 88,000 based on those who are doing apprenticeships and those who are going into engineering undergraduate degrees, assuming they all wanted to then stay in engineering and technology. And then the final number you can add on to that are the people who are doing level 4 apprenticeships after their A levels, where there are not necessarily after their A levels, therefore you can't add all of them on. And the Royal Academy of Engineering adds on 17,000 of those to come up with 105,000 each year available. It cannot count these, which are postgraduate people over on the right-hand side, because they all have done undergraduate degrees really, so there's no opportunity. So 105 is their number. And there's the summary: 130 needed, 105 being produced. And so on the basis of that, you would say that there's a 19% shortfall each year. But of course, because most of us only retire once in our lifetime, and we've got 50 years, the rate of decay is 25,000 people a year out of 6.5 million. And so if nothing was done to the current situation, it would take 40 years to get that employment down to 5.5 million. And so the idea that we're facing a cliff edge is wrong. In my view, what we're facing here is a gradual decay at a time when we're looking at 1%, 4% increase is potential for opportunities in engineering technology. But in terms of if we don't do something about this today, will Britain shut tomorrow? Then obviously that's not the case. But 25,000 a year does add up to 1 million if you wait long enough. So that's all about the quantity. That's all about have we got enough people coming through? And Five Tribes, which is work that was, as I say, done by the IMechE back in 2014, looked at the situation to say, is there some way that we could change engineering education that would mean that some of that 600,000 that are available each year, more than 600,000, when we're only getting 105 coming out, could we not tweak that to 130? Surely that's not beyond belief. And so what we did at that time when we were at the institution was that we did some research in secondary schools. We interviewed 1,500 students, and we got some personal data on them as to what their sort of socioeconomic group was, their background was. We got the area B there as to what they were interested in currently, what they were currently doing at school and what they were happy with, and then their views about the future, about what their opinions were for the future for them. About half of them were GCSE students, and about half of them were level 3 students, A-level students. And what we did in Five Tribes was we clustered their responses based on their views about engineering and technology, and we got them into different cohorts based on similarities of those cohorts. And not surprisingly, because Five Tribes is there, we got that into five cohorts. So let's look at those cohorts, because the idea is that you personalize your education to each of those cohorts. You sell differently. You segment your market into those 5 markets. So here's the first one. This is the home dunk. 29% of us like school. We're good at maths. We've got family ties to science and maths. We see careers as prestigious. And to a large extent, you could throw cold water at this lot and they would still like to continue doing a STEM career. I think that might apply to pretty much most of us on this soiree this evening. The key point here is that whilst it's 58% male, this group, secondary school students, it's 42% female. And so that therefore means that with 29% multiplying 29% by 42%, you're getting 12% of the entire female population showing strong interest in STEM. Now, as we know, the numbers are, again, these are not totally accurate, but somewhere between 15 and 20% of the actual engineering workforce is female. So you're getting the vast majority of women involved in engineering technologies careers coming through this route, not through any of the other four tribes. And so when we now look at the other four tribes, there's great untapped potential there, not only to attract the men in those tribes, but also specifically to attract the women in these tribes. But I think this particular group, the STEM devotees, and I'm one of them, you could take these to the bank, really. These people always liked it, and hopefully the picture conveys the sort of thing that they actually look like. So here's the next biggest group, social artists. These are slightly more predominantly female. They're quite creative. They do like their school, but they have no particular interest in the sort of technology areas that we talk to them about, unless it was linked to art and design. But they do like working together, develop views of the wider world, and they're very open to project-based learning in terms of let's look at some challenges, let's understand through networking how we can solve these challenges. And so if you were teaching these people and said, oh, physics is fun, they would roll their eyes. They're not interested. But if you were to say to them, how do we get green energy? What opportunities have we got to design systems to use less power or to use more greener? Then they would be interested in the opportunity to create design solutions and network with other people to do it through some project-based learning. So there are 14% of the total female population in this group, which is more than the 12% of the females that are in the STEM devotees. So there's quite a good opportunity here to talk about the benefits of engineering and technology rather than the features of engineering and technology. The next largest group are these individualists. These tend to be more the sixth form students who are innovators, they're business focused. They haven't got many family ties to STEM, but they're the sort of person who turns up on Dragon's Den with a great idea to create a business. And they see engineering as creative and important, but perhaps not as much for them. But they do want to generate businesses and they do want to generate ideas and have a lead. And so they would be very interested in any commercial teaching that you could add in to the sort of the way in which businesses, markets operate and manufacturing works, and from the point of view of the innovation and the business links to it. So again, a reasonable number, 9% of the female population is in here. It's quite a good target to say engineering is not about engineering; it's about the business that it creates. The fourth group are a very high target group, which is the enthused group. So they're competitive, they're honest, they're passionate, but they have got no idea about STEM because they have no family ties to STEM. But they do hold it in high regard, and they just know nothing about it. And when you combine them with the fact that their teachers often know nothing about engineering and technology in terms of career opportunities, then this is a great untapped area to be able to say, well, if we could increase awareness of what the opportunities were, these people who are unfocused at the moment could be terribly enthused. They're terribly energetic and healthy, and they would be very enthused to say, well, I didn't know that I could do that. I'm interested. I don't particularly like physics and maths. I've low family ties to STEM, but on the other hand, I do see the benefit and the aspiration and the optimism of doing some of the things that you've described. So this is about careers advice, a better careers advice. And then the final group, which unfortunately is slightly larger, and we've probably met all of these people before. These are people who do not like school. And so they're dead keen to leave school. They tend not to have any family involvement in engineering, but they are very much directed by what their family wants to do, influenced most by their close family. And the activity of engaging these people is, okay, well, you want to get out of school, so where can you go? And this is very much about further education and apprenticeships and giving people an opportunity to say, look, academic approach, 100% academic approach is not the only way forward. There's opportunities here to work in earn money early on and be independent and just generally grow up, which is what these people want to do. They don't want to sit and do maths and physics in the schoolroom, but through other career routes, multiple career routes rather than A levels and universities, you could engage this group. So that was the 5 tribes, and hopefully, as we've gone through, you can see that by segmenting the way you do things, rather than just saying, "Oh, I like physics. I don't know why you don't like physics," you can actually engage these different groups in different ways. And we only need to shift the needle, remember, from 105,000 to 130 or 140,000, which is not a big shift. So I think some of this customization, personalization that was in 5 tribes is certainly quite possible. So let's have a look at what implications that has now for teaching. So this again, I'm drawing on work that the Royal Academy of Engineering is leading on in terms of rethinking the skills that people need in the future world. And so, if we are going to do more project-based learning, what projects are we going to choose? Are we going to do more business and commercial teaching? How are we going to train the teachers to do that? If we're going to get careers awareness into the teaching, how are we going to do that? And then if we've got to acknowledge that further education and multiple routes into engineering and technology are valuable and not a failure if you don't do A levels and go to university. The academy is saying, well, if we're trying to do all of that, are we still trying to teach people what I was taught back in the 1960s, 70s, or are we trying to teach them something different as well? So it kind of layers the what qualities do we want from these engineers on top of the quantity issue. And from what I've said about the way we're increasing the quantity, we're actually going to get a range of different engineers. We're going to get these people who are interested in business, these people who are interested in multiple routes, these people who are interested in working in project-based team-based activities. And the Academy has tried to summarize these challenges as these 3 activities. So this comes out of their National Engineering Policy Centre, which goes across a whole range of organizations, but the Academy is leading. Engineers 2030 Progress. But this is no sort of woke care community. This is the reality that by 2030, the climate will have changed. And so it will be more difficult to live in certain environments. Different amounts of energy will be needed, and so on, because the planet is different temperature. It is necessary. There are now 8 billion people on the planet. Thomas Malthus in 1798, wasn't it? He said that about 1 billion is what we can accommodate on this planet. And so sustainability and systems thinking as to how do we sweat the assets we've got in order to maintain a planet that can have 8 billion people on it. It needs some sort of thinking rather than just hoping we're going to find a new mine of lithium somewhere. And then the key impact of technology, this artificial intelligence digitization, is the fact that a lot of what we learned, certainly when I was at school, using slide rules and log tables, is completely irrelevant now in terms of the skills that we need engineers to have. And so it's sort of saying that not only do you need to change the quantity coming through, these are the sort of qualities of people that we need to make sure those are coming through. And I certainly, when I was taught at school, I was not taught about the way in which we respond to climate change, the way we talk about sustainability, and the way we talk about computers. Indeed, computers probably were non-existent at that time. I'm working with City St George's University at the moment, and they've got a module that all of their engineering undergraduates have to take. They take it in the first, second, third, and if they stay on into the 4th year, called the Engineering Society. And one of the things that seems to be working there, and it's been very effective in improving in retention of those engineering students rather than them dropping out, is the fact that there are societal needs from engineering, societal benefits of engineering, not just engineering in itself on its own. They do latch on to the fact that these external frameworks and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which there are 17, you can see all 17 of them there, are sensible activities in order to ensure, and at the start, I just deal with the basic needs here, that if people are poor, hungry, ill, have no clean water, and it's lawless, then you're in a situation where it doesn't matter what engineering you've got at all, that you've just got chaos and society is not operating. And then in this middle category, the United Nations says, well, we need to deal on these activities generally to do with the human impact on the planet. We need large amounts of energy. We need large cities. We need more economic growth. We need resilient structure and so on. And then they say at the top here, there are iniquities in society that we really should be working on, which is that there is gender inequality, that generally there is also inequality depending on where you're born, and inability to access education depending on where you're born. So the students relate very much to the benefits that engineering and technology bring. And they want to study this and they want to work on it. We've just done the second year course, it's just finished. There are 339 students at City St George's, and we divided them into 60 groups for some project-based learning on this. And normally at City St George's, you get about 15 to 20% dropout, which is very high, I realise, but it's a fact of life. We had no dropout on this. It just engages students that this is something useful to do. And I would encourage you, those of you who are involved in the accreditation of these activities, that the accreditation of higher education programs level 4 already requires that courses deal with what they call security with law and order. It deals with sustainability, ethics, and risk management, and deals with equality, diversity, and inclusion. So the accreditation of the undergraduate course at City has had to show its way of doing those things. And then the individual, the UK specification for professional engineering competence and commitment, also asks that you demonstrate, in order to become registered, that you are following a code of conduct, that you have this same group in the middle here of you understand what sustainability means, you understand what ethics are, and you understand what safety, risk management, and you commit to continuing CPD. So there's not only do the students understand sort of the social idea of United Nations, they do understand that in order to get qualifications, you're having to demonstrate these things at all, and it is very popular. So in conclusion, we're in the situation where I'm going to start with two quotes from the IMechE report, because I think they're obviously what the IMechE said at the time, but I think they also summarize what I've been trying to say, which is that there is a cohort of people out there who are not STEM devotees, who are able to be addressed if you just change the approach to the way you describe engineering technology, the way you teach engineering and technology, and the methods you use, and so. And so they generate confidence and you generate engagement if you can engage those students. And the second one is that there should be a reference to society. There should be a reference to benefits of engineering rather than features of engineering, to illustrate the diverse nature, because there is still a perception that engineering is energy and transport and infrastructure, whereas in fact, of course, it is sports and environment and information technology and agriculture and all sorts of things that people understand are definitely needed, whereas probably fast cars are not definitely needed. So at the end, what are we doing? What are the next steps? I go back to the Royal Academy of Engineering again, bless them. They are taking a lead in all of this. And they've contracted an organization called Engineers Without Borders to run something called a Systems Change Lab on Engineering 2030, reshaping engineering. And they're looking at how we can effectively do what I've just described in the last 20 minutes, which is change the way in which we teach and measure what engineering is, on the basis that what engineering needs to be is also changing in society. And so if there is any opportunity or time on your plates that you would like to be able to share, there is an Engineers Without Borders website, Systems Change Lab, and they've said there are going to be 4 task and finish groups working this year, reporting this year, looking at 4 features of how we drive change in the way we educate engineers. And I'll just quickly run through. One of them is policy and standards, as we've just did on that previous slide. Is there anything about the way in which we regulate the industry, and anything that we say in public about the industry that means that if we changed our tone on that it would change the engagement? They've then got the second category is stories of change. Are there already practices coming in that are making a difference and engaging more of these other cohorts, the enthused, unfocused, and the social artists and the individualists? Are there any stories that we could copy and learn from in terms of sharing best practice? There's then a third one, which I think is a very important one, roles and values. What is a role of an engineer? What are the values of the engineer? Because as we also know, there are only 300,000 of us in the UK who are registered with the Engineering Council out of that 6.5 million who are in engineering and technology. So the concept that the Engineering Council or something is going to define what the role and value of an engineer is relevant only to a very small percentage, 5% of the population who are actually involved in engineering. So what values and what roles do we have these people who may well not have A-level physics in contributing to engineering technology? And then the final group is the education group, education and upskilling group, which is that how do we support the education system to be able to do these different customized ways of education that we've just described? How do we support teachers to know about careers that they've never taken part in? How do we support them to do project-based learning rather than rote learning and so on? And so there's 4 groups. Our meeting, the next meeting is next Tuesday, actually, in Bristol. And open to anybody who wants to volunteer their time and come and take part. So that's how we want to change the number of people coming through and the qualities of the people coming through. And thank you to the Royal Academy of Engineering for doing all of that work and funding that work. And thank you to you for waiting and listening to that. So thank you very much, and I will stop sharing the screen.